Yes, good evening, everyone. Good evening, Professor Tagtakin. Thank you for your time and your help. We're in week 2 of implementing the first 2 features that you requested for us from our PRD that we submitted last week on week 1. I'm going to show you guys where I'm at, what I'm trying to accomplish, pardon me, and some of the questions I have on the code that I will be submitting tonight to see if I can possibly make corrections tomorrow morning on. Professor Tech if you're available during your office hours. Okay, so to start, let's just look at the general application here in Google App Engine Launcher. Going here, we have our reusable library, which is from an original project that I tried to do for DPW back in the day, a little while back. Google App Engine Launcher is the tool we're using to utilize this service. So we'll browse, see what it does. Okay, as you can see here, you submit your first name, last name, email, 50-yard time, and 25-yard split time. This is for swimming competitions, and what it will do is help people to find the proper time conversions for their times. So I put in my first name, last name, just an example email. Let's say 2500 and 12.5. Okay, we submit it, and we have this HTML display displaying our conversions. I need to make a quick correction to that. Well, I can make that correction later. These times are right. These times I miscalculated, so I got to fix the conversion on that. That should actually be about double that, so somehow I cut it in half. I'll fix that in a moment. That's the general functionality of the Python code in and of itself. Now what I'm attempting to do for this project as a whole is utilize the Flask micro framework, which uses templating and routing through, I believe Jinja is the type of templates it uses, kind of to save code bloat, but also to utilize more communication as a server-side language. So where I'm at, let me just give you a couple examples of what they're showing us in these YouTube and other online tutorials and some examples that Professor Tech gave me on my last attempt on this course. Here we learn how to install Flask. I did a system-wide installation, but that's the first issue I'm running into is even though I did a system-wide installation, it's not picking up, it's not acknowledging that Flask was installed, which I'll show you in a second. Basically what we're trying to do here though, let me see if I can find the right tutorial I was looking at. Let's look at this one first. Like this guy was trying to do, and I'm trying to learn from. You import Flask, and then you import the render template feature, which we use to find the templates that contain the HTML code that we have for our files. We use app and Flask name. We put in our route and the name of the file we're going after. In his case, it was profile.html, so he used profile as you see up here. You need to explain the variable, give it a name, and then he calls it. And then, of course, at the bottom you have if name and equals main and the app.run feature. If we go into this example, this guy was doing something similar in structure but a little different. Again, Flask import Flask render template, etc. He used a methods equals get format for, I guess, his form features that he was using, and he called it index because his well, that was the variable he declared. Layout.html was the template he created. He calls it down here in the render template portion, calls out the variable here that he sets up, tells it that the language is Python, language false, and then the framework is Flask, and of course you see the if name, etc. down here. Now, okay, so we've got great examples. What I'm looking at here with my code is I first of all have in Google App Engine Launcher two features right now. If you remember seeing back, you have the reusable library, which is the original Python code, and it works fine, as you can see. Okay. However, there's a couple issues I'm running into. I made a copy of it and called it reusable library copy. And if I just run the Python code in and of itself, it works just like you saw with the reusable library. However, I browse and let me close that. And of course, I'm getting an error. And if I go back and check the logs, right now the first thing it's going at is no module name Flask. So that's something I want to ask Professor Tech in the morning as to, even though I did a system-wide installation, why is it not recognizing Flask? Maybe I might have to install it separately in the file, I'm not sure. But file structure, if we look at the code that I created for this, let's look at kind of a before and after as to what I'm doing right now. The way the original code works is you have your main.py and you import your web app, and I also have some classes called form page and results page from the pages link that I have, and then on the library I also have I have one called conversions. Okay, here you can see commented out importing MySQL connector. That's something I want to work on for week 3 for CRUD features. But down here you have your main handler your main handler classes or class. Then you're pulling your variables from form page, result page, and conversions. You're doing your self-request.get storing of the data on the main.py. Okay, then you're calling the conversions that I have in here for the 50 times and the 25 times from what you get from the form, and then q.first, q.1, q.exchange. Those are the equations that I have stored in, I think it's library.py. I'll see that in a second. Down here we've got some code again for week 3 that I'll work on a little later that Professor Tech can help me with my last attempt for pulling to the database, but we'll cover that more next week. Go to library.py. In the library we have our conversions object and the init function, and then conversions first, conversions second. Those are the file names I gave it. And down here we have our conversions. 1.11, 1.11. Oh, that's the updated one from copy. This is the original one that had the outdated conversions. So we have our getters and setters in here, and that's where that's all set up in the Python aspect of things. Let me change this real quick to 1.11, and then this should also be 1.11. Okay, we'll save that feature. Let me just do that real quick, make sure that that is working on the conversions. So that's one step I can clean up. Let's go to the original. Okay, we'll browse. Stop. Okay, here. 25 flat. Let's go 12 flat. Let's see if the conversions are right this time, and yes, they are. Okay, so that's taken care of. Back to the code. And then, of course, pages. Am I on the probably the top one? That's the one I haven't. Let me just double check. Yes. Okay, the pages portion Python file, and we have our form page class, and we have our self title, self CSS, self head, triple quotes, and then we have your HTML structure that you saw while also calling in the style sheets that we have in the main folder. Okay, so you have your form information, your IDs, etc., your labels, your types, and what that is, and you close it down here with the self.body and the self.close. Close the body, close the HTML, and then the triple quotes ending for this self.body, self.close feature. Okay, it's something I got to re-look up because it's confusing me a bit, because what I'm attempting to do now is go more of that Flask route. At this point in time, as you saw earlier, it said it couldn't find Flask. So that's my first question I'm going to ask Professor to help Tech to help me with, is to see why it's not doing that. Because what I want it to do is import Flask and then import the template that we created. Now, as we saw in those features earlier in the YouTube videos, I have that down here. My first thing I'm still trying to figure out is if I should have this portion of the code outside of the form page class or inside, because earlier, as we saw, the HTML was inside the class. Now the HTML is no longer here because we moved it to the template form.html, and it's sitting all here. And then I also brought over the self.body, self.close, which I'm questioning. I'm wondering if I should have just cut it off here at the input with the button and then left the self.body, self.close in there. But the only reason why I brought it over is because in the original code, the closing body tag and the closing HTML tag comes after it. So that's why I put that in there. It's because if I go back here to pages, the one I'm working on, what I'm trying to accomplish once Flask gets figured out on this page is, okay, if it runs the class and down here in self.head, okay, will it run the Flask code? Will it pull the route to the form, /form? Will it pull the template, form.html, and use the feature here? I ended the triple quotes since it was opened in triple quotes up here in the self.head. And then, of course, the hope would be that you would get the same functionality as you saw earlier. So those are the few things I'm trying to clean up. The rest of the code I'm leaving as is. The print out call functions. Then you have the results page, which is a separate HTML feature. But more of this. Now again, let me see, this is commented out initially to show information that's converted and displayed to the user. Self.first, self.last. Okay, I think that was the basic HTML I was using on the results page. It's very basic. It's only got paragraph tags in it. I got to clean it up a bit. But basically what I want to do is get this video up just to give you the updated status as to where I'm at with the code's functionality to this point for week 2. The features being the form submission and also the data conversions, okay, and then if you want to consider the extra features, the implementation of Flask, okay. So my questions I will be asking Professor Tech and via email tonight, and hopefully speak with him during his office hours tomorrow, will be to figure out how I can get Flask imported into pages.py, or whether I should just do it in main.py up here, or if I do that aspect in pages. That's the first issue. And then whichever fashion it is, again, if it's in main.py, then I'll bring over that code that I need and probably do it here outside the main handler class, either before or after, probably after, in terms of sequential reading of the code by the browser. And then if not, and if pages.py is the file that we will use, we will I'm going to try to figure out how to get Flask imported, and then hopefully have the form finally be acknowledged, and therefore functionality wise, even though the code is different from the original Python code, Flask will now be invoked, as well as Bootstrap, which Bootstrap should be incorporated in to, I think it's library.py, Bootstrap, or no, it might be pages. Let me look at the pages. 1 second. Okay, let's look at the form. Let's Bootstrap in here. Yes, sorry, we have the Bootstrap incorporated here with the template. Okay, so basically all I'm trying to do, long story short, in conclusion, is keep the functionality the same, except instead of having, like in the original pages file, the HTML being rendered in the within the class, is take the code bloat out, put all that away, put the call to the template in there, have a separate template in the templates folder, which you will see right here. Okay. Form.html is what I want. Forms is not what I want, so I'll get rid of that. Okay, and then hopefully have the Flask portion implemented so we can move so I can move into week 3 with the CRUD features and then week 4 with the API features. This is where I'm at. I do thank you for taking the time to see. I will try to reach out to Professor Tegtekin tonight, first thing tomorrow morning, via his office hours after sending the email to verify. And if I can get this cleaned up and fixed, hopefully have an updated video submitted later Monday afternoon, tomorrow afternoon, to show that the bugs were worked out. Okay, so I thank you all for your time. I thank you, Professor Tegtekin, for your time and your help, and I look forward to talking with you soon. All right, have a blessed one. Bye.